Hi, and welcome to another episode of Inclusively. In this series, we're asking how has the pandemic changed people's lives, and what lessons have we learned that could make a post pandemic world more inclusive? I'm your host, Petrina Kow.
And I'm Laurindo Garcia.
Today, we shine the spotlight on migrant workers. Now, I think in Singapore, this has been one of the biggest issues that have come up for us in the last few months when COVID hit Singapore. And I think, looking at it as a whole now, I'm not sure I'm right in saying I'm glad, but I'm really, in a way, sort of grateful that the situation that we've seen in Singapore has allowed us to really sort of sit up and pay attention to the people who are most vulnerable right here in Singapore.
From a personal perspective, this conversation is coming at a time when, at least globally, there's much more heightened consciousness about who are most vulnerable during the pandemic. We've got protests in the United States, in the UK, and Australia that are really exposing systematic racism that is contributing to people getting sick and not having what they need to be able to survive the pandemic. And at the same time, we're also at least I'm very aware that for a migrant, if you're a migrant in many places, it's very difficult for you to stand up and to make your voice heard because you're oftentimes you're a guest in the country. Your situation about your ability to stay and to integrate into society is also a challenge as well, and so it makes it very difficult for migrant workers, for migrants as a whole, to be part of this process in trying to work out some of the challenges and the problems in these systems. So I'm really excited that we've got a chance to talk through some of these issues with a fantastic panel today. One of our guests is Ali Noor Fadhila. She's a domestic worker in Singapore from Indonesia. She's also a volunteer with Invisible Hand Singapore and a winner of the Migrant Storytelling Competition here. Welcome to the show, Ellie. She's also our artist in residence today, and she'll be offering us a poem later on in the show, so please stay with us. Also joining us is Ramasamy Madhavan, who is an engineer from India who works here in Singapore's construction industry. And Madhavan was also a director of a short film called Salary Days as well, which has gotten a lot of people talking and really gaining a greater understanding of the situation for construction workers here in Singapore. So welcome to you too, Madhavan.
And we also, joining us on the show, we have Bhing Navato, who's a volunteer here who works at one of the crisis hotlines for the Humanitarian Organization for Migrant Economics, also known as HOME. And she'll also be offering her perspective. And she's also been a foreign domestic worker here in Singapore for many, many years. Plus, we're also very fortunate to have Eni Lestari Andayani Adi joining us from Hong Kong. Eni is the founder of the Association of Indonesian Migrant Workers and the chairperson of the International Migrants Alliance. Welcome, everybody.
So, Eni, let's start with you. Thank you for joining us from Hong Kong today. And I know Sundays are a very busy day for you, but I'd love to just find out how you are. I mean, so where are you joining us right at this moment?
Well, yeah, I really thank both of you for inviting me to join the discussion. We really, in the past months, we have been trying to make our voices visible in the discussion of COVID-19. As you know, that the migrant workers are really being put sideline, and until there is a big case in Malaysia or maybe in Singapore, then our stories really never been found anywhere in the news. So for me, the COVID-19 has been very challenging. Honestly, it changed everything. Our way of life every day, like you have to limit your time to go out. Personally, because I'm also domestic worker here, so I cannot go too much outside, and that's mean I have to work a lot from the house. We cannot even organize now. We cannot gather together. In Hong Kong, at least we have weekly holiday, right? So Sunday, domestic worker will gather in the park, under the bridge, or every public spaces. But now, since the COVID-19, it was like gone. It was dispersed. With the Hong Kong imposing a social distancing, which is by 4, now by 8th. That means that even you have 20 members, you cannot get together. So that really becoming a big challenge for us now. And in the past 3 months, getting together has been our major issues. And yet our issue now is you have to tell a lot to domestic workers about different policies that has been changed. For example, immigration, COVID-19, you don't have to go out to extend your visa. You can renew it in Hong Kong, but we cannot do this. The problem is because we cannot even meet them regularly. So now we are changing our style of using social media or Facebook to even share our news. So we organize a weekly fact community on this issue. With me, I'm still okay. My employer is doing good, and he really have a lot of understanding. He just gave me a lot of warning about, being clean and alcohol. Like wearing the mask all the time, which is mandatory. But he doesn't impose any unnecessary, requirements.
It sounded like number one, it's great that you've got an understanding and supportive employer that enables you to do all this other work. But at the same time, as an organization, you've had to learn very fast how to change the way that you're delivering services as well, and doing a lot of this online. And so you were saying to me before we joined today's show that normally on a Sunday you would be out in the park, right? So how does that work within the context of social distancing? So you're still able to be out there, but so how does that work?
One of the funny part of this, I would like to go to the negative consequences first. Since the COVID-19, a lot of employers are they are too afraid to even let the domestic workers to go out. They say that, you might bring virus to my house. So they even tell their workers not to go out, even on Sunday. And you can imagine after 6 days, a week, being confined in the house, that's the only day that you can breathe, you can meet friends, you can go to the church, you can go to the mosque, and this is even the night. So in our survey, we even found out 50% of the domestic workers, we have 400,000 domestic workers in Hong Kong, half of them were actually the night holiday. So some even 2 months without holiday. So that's one of the consequences. The second is those with holiday, they have a shorter hours. They usually go out by 10, 11, and they have to come back by 5. So even our own members, we cannot meet them, So, and a lot of them are forced to stay, within the employer premises, like the park nearby employer house, so they don't have to travel that far, and then they don't have to consume so much time. So that means even they have a day off, as organizer, I cannot meet them. So it's getting so challenging for us to even meeting our own members. So what we do, not even when you can get together, you have to remember all the time, sit by four, and don't get together. Sometimes we forgot. And then you cannot eat, usually the Indonesian, I'm sure in other nationalities, especially in Southeast and South Asian, we eat by hand, right? We like to share. And then now we tell everyone, don't eat by hand, eat by spoon, something like that. So it's kind of education, it's the other side of that, the positive side is also an education about hygiene to the people, I mean, not that we are not clean, but sometimes we don't mind all this hygiene issue, but this is the time that you have to be clean. So now to do organizing, the way we do it is we actually group our leaders or our officer into small group. We usually 3 through 4 people, and these 4 people are the one going around different places in Hong Kong, meeting different people, giving away flyers, because the problem also, the information we have on COVID-19 and other policy are in English and Chinese. So to translate it to Urdu, to translate it to Thai or Indonesian, even Filipino, not everyone can really understand what it means, right? So as organizer, you are being challenged to even translate that into your own language, putting it very simple, direct to the point, and print it. And unfortunately, I can say there is no funding for this kind of program. We are the one raising the money, talking to our different supporters, to give us money so we can print in thousand of this information. So one of the gap that I really find in this COVID-19 is a gap in information. We do not know what is going to happen. Yeah, and a lot of our members, they learn about COVID-19 through the employer, because the employers is watching the media, and they don't understand what it's, in Chinese or in Cantonese. So it's the employer who tell them, oh, you don't go out, you only stay by 4. They learn it from the employer. This is very unfortunate. So we have been very critical to Hong Kong government for putting us aside. Now we are being blamed. Whenever we gather more than 4, they say that you don't follow the rule. How can we even follow the rule? We don't understand the rule. So that's one of the biggest gap in terms of information. And the second issue is also there is no support in terms of mask, sanitizer, or even cash. We get nothing. So in our survey, we found out 35% of the domestic workers in Hong Kong were not given masks and sanitizer. So in the first 2 months of this COVID-19, you know what happened to us? We keep collecting donation of mask, sanitizer, and we go around different park on places in Hong Kong to give away free masks. And this is something that the government has done. It's just like it gives us a double work, but that's how we try to cope up. I mean, the positive lesson of this COVID is really the lesson of solidarity. A lot of Hong Kong people who really care, they give us a box of masks, and they tell us, please give away to your fellows, because they know exactly many of us were not given. And then for us, we have to rely to the most leaders who are given holiday by employer without any condition. And that means out of 50 members that we have, we only rely on to 10 people, something like that. So our number is very small now, and you have to split them in and put them into different places. So there are a lot of adjustment. Honestly, for me, I feel very exhausted. I feel more exhausted during this COVID-19 than before the COVID-19. I'm sure everyone feel that, even, you don't have to be migrant domestic workers or migrant workers to be exhausted. But with migrant workers, because we are left behind in any assistance, you have to work double, triple, just to raise the mask, sanitizer. And now when the government is giving away cash to the Hong Kong people, including Hong Kong residents, domestic workers, refugee community are not given at all. So, I mean, we spend more money during COVID-19. You have to buy masks, you have to buy sanitizer, you have to buy food that will keep you healthy, but none of the cash is given to us. So that's the sad part of this COVID-19.
Thank you for sharing the situation in Hong Kong, Eni. And I think that there's a lot of echoes with this experience here in Singapore and other cities and places in the region there. Please stay with us, Eni. We will be coming back to you in a moment. I do want to then invite Madhavan to join the conversation now. How are you, Madhavan?
Yes, I'm good.
I got to know your work through the film that you made called Salary Days. So for our listeners who may not have seen it, can you give us a bit of just share a bit about what your film was about?
Salary Day is about the life of migrant workers in all over the world. I just take the concept from one of my poem about the migrant life. In his first month salary, on that day, what he do, how he tally the money for different expenses. He need to send the money to family to pay back the agent fees, and also for the monthly food, and then a mobile top up, then for groceries, balance $8 in hand. Then he looked for good food in some restaurants. After that, he decided to go for haircut rather than taking the food. Then for haircut, $7 gone. Then balance $1 in hand.
Right. So that's really illustrates how very little money that a construction worker, a migrant worker has to live on after money's being sent back home, where you're supporting your families back home. So I've got 2 questions for you. So number 1, what has been the response from your film? And secondly, your film was released in April, and then what have you been observing since the film was released in relation to the pandemic?
I receive almost 99% positive feedback. Everyone supporting me. Many bigger people in Singapore appreciate it. Art Science Museum contacted me and they ready to share my short film in their webpage. And its training coach founder Deepa contacted me. She also appreciated it. Many people appreciated through Facebook and YouTube comments. One or two people questioning me about the film is not up to the level because of lack of technical items missed out. No, but they forgot to catch the story. Yes.
They missed the point, isn't it?
Yes.
There's always critics, right? But it sounds like it's great. It's great that there's an overwhelming response, a good response.
As a film, acting skill is bit less. The technical part is bit less. I don't want to add music or something because I want to take a raw footage with the minimum available resources. Me and my friends do this film. Zagi brother and Sepang is the main person to do this film. The main content is what the film tells. They forgot to notice this.
And since it was released and as the situation the situation for construction workers in Singapore has gotten worse, what were some of the things that you have observed amongst your co-workers, amongst your friends, and what is and the response that you've seen from the local stakeholders?
From the local people, they also mention it's like my story. They commented like it's my story, and also I send my film link to Dubai friend. He shared it in Facebook. Some of the Dubai friends, they calculated in KD, maybe the Dubai dollar. The one guy calculated in how he spent. Finally, he left only 2 KD. The migrant, the people who work in construction and also domestic worker also appreciated it. They also mention it. It's like my story.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that's just, I remember watching your film. Actually, it was the opening film for another during the film festival last year, and it was really moving. So thank you very much for that that film. And I personally thought it didn't need anything else. It didn't need to have fancy lighting or, the point of it was, and I really felt for the guy when he looked at how much he had left and he decided, no, I think I need a shave and a haircut instead of, having a fancier meal. Thank you so much, Madhavan, for that. I'd like to now bring on Bhing, who she's been somebody I really had a privilege of getting to know a couple of years ago when I organized the Migrant Worker Storytelling Competition. She's been a domestic worker here in Singapore for 25 years. She's a single mother of 3, a grandmother of 7, though when you look at her, she just has this wonderful, youthful beauty about her. She's also an active help desk volunteer to Home, which is dedicated to supporting and empowering migrant workers who suffer abuse and exploitation here in Singapore. Welcome to the show, Bing. How are you?
Hello. Yes, I'm good. Yeah.
So,
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. Maybe you can tell us, perhaps first, is your own personal experience with how, the whole pandemic has affected the way your movements in the house, or perhaps, whether or not you've been allowed like off days and things like that. Just your own experience for now.
Yeah, before this pandemic, we move freely. Like my Sunday is also as busy as always. Like doing my volunteer, going to church, meeting up friends, and doing my activities. So every Sunday was like that, and for 25 years. And suddenly this COVID happens. We were like, what will happen next? I was even questioning myself, like, when will this end? During the COVID-19, we're used of going out like full day, being out of the house. But now we are stuck at home. our rest day is at home now, being with our employers, which is good because we get to know them really well. We have conversations, but for me, it is true that this is a new normal for everyone, even for domestic workers like me, because we stop meeting friends, we stop going to church, we stop everything that we do. So it is something that really difficult for us because our work is at home 6 days a week. And normally the Sunday is the only time we can go out and do whatever we want to do to run our errands. But now, even on Sundays, we just stay at home. That's why I always find it odd when Minister of Manpower will send messages before, since March 21. I always remember that date because they started saying that domestic workers must stay home on their rest day. But they never even really think that many domestic workers don't have a place to take a rest because not all of us have our own room. And many domestic workers here also, like on their rest day, they need to work even with without employers telling them. But because I think that is our instinct that since we're at home we need to do something. I agree i agree to that. I mean, even my friends are doing the same thing too. Like most of their off days are on half days now because they need to do something. We cannot stay on our bed the whole day. It will give us headache. you know
Yeah. It's kind of like if you're there, you're like, oh, I might as well just vacuum the floor, or I might as well just fold the clothes. And yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah, so it will be like that, and then getting used to the routine, especially on the first month of the circuit breaker, was really difficult because that time we are uncertain whether we can go out or not. I mean, we see people, we see locals and some other like not the domestic workers are outside, they're doing exercise, but because of the notice of the Ministry of Manpower that on our rest day we must stay at home, we can do our errands, but after doing your errands like sending money or buying your essential things, you need to go back home. No need to meet up with friends or any other things. So that time I was uncertain, like, can I go out for a walk? Can I just go for exercise? That's why that time I wrote an article asking, like, are we allowed to exercise like the other people here in Singapore? So that was difficult. It changes a lot. It changes a lot because not only for my routine, but I think for many domestic workers here, that their work has doubled, and I think they are more stressed. I think not only us, but also our employers are also stressed because we're getting used to seeing everyone at home all the time. So it wasn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, we just so sort of take for granted, and in a way, I'm so glad to hear that your employer has been really understanding, but I'm I'm just not sure that this is the same for, I don't know, 80 to 90% of the domestic workers in Singapore, where the employers are being very kind of strict about, no, put it down, go and rest or watch TV or, go out for a walk or something. I think very often they would just sort of either leave you be. If you want to do the work, you do it. Hey, I'm getting extra work for free, or I'm not paying you extra, that type of thing. And it's a really fine line. So I feel like, do you have any statistics, or have you seen an increased rate in the number of calls for help, or, more distress calls from the domestic workers here in Singapore through to home?
Yes, the calls have been increased like 20 to 25%. It is like a distress call. Like everyone, most domestic workers will call because they ask for, do we still have an off day? Are we allowed to go out? When can we go out? Are we allowed to go out with friends? is it true that MOM said that we cannot go out? So I need to clarify with them the notice, that the notice said we have a rest day. It depends on your communicate on how you communicate with your employer. Like if employers say, can you work on your rest day, and then they need to pay you, when you work on that day. But if you initiate to do the work at home, then I think it's fine, because you feel like you're doing not doing anything. But there are many employers now that not mainly expat, but mostly are locals. So sorry to say that, but I receive a lot of calls that employers were saying, MOM said that you cannot go out on your rest day. You need to work because you're not allowed to go out. Then when they asked me, I said that's not the notice. They said you can go out, you can send money, do your errands, but you need to come back. I mean, it's for your own safety. So I need to explain to them what is the notice about. But then still, because their employer said so, so they will comply with that. Then they will just stay at home. I have one caller who showed me a picture of just one chair because she has no room. She's sleeping in the living room. So Sunday morning, everybody is up and she has no place to go. She asked to go for a walk, but the employer said, no, you cannot go out. What if you get the virus outside? So those are the things. So I explained to some people how employers should allow their domestic workers to be outside even for just a couple of hours, that they will use the time to call their family. They will talk freely. They can show how they feel, their emotions. They can do that outside, or they can call their friends, at least for 2 hours. Just let them breathe. I mean, it is very important, because I think our employers will feel the same thing too, right? So I have one call. I was very alerted into that when she said she wants to commit suicide already, because her employer told her that I will treat you like a robot. So literally, like, you cannot rest. You're not allowed to talk to anyone. She used to have her phone uh, at night, 10:30 at night, and then the employer will take it back at 6 a.m. But the employer can see from the CCTV that she spent like 3 hours on the phone at night. But how can she? Because that's the only time she can talk. So they started, confiscating it again and give it to her like on weekends. But if she will make a mistake, they will not give back her phone. But finally, she ran away 2 Sundays ago. But because I was really worried that, when she told me that I just want to die, if I cannot go out, I just want to die. Yeah. So it is really, there are so many calls. That's why when the news a few weeks ago said that they only received like 2 calls during this COVID, I said, no, it was not like that. I received like 10 calls. My other volunteer friends received more calls. And what about the other NGOs? So we keep receiving calls. The problem with the ministry, I think, is that there's no one to answer their phone. Because for me, for me, if I cannot, there's no advice left for me to say to a person. I will say, can you just call MOM? I think you'll be directed, and then they will tell me, they will call me back and say that nobody's answering the call. You can only email, but not all domestic workers know how to send email. So that's the problem. So there's like a 20-25% raise of calls.
That is just, so heartbreaking to hear because, already without the pandemic, when I hear stories of employers in Singapore and the high rates of just the inhumanity and the abuse that these domestic workers suffer, and then using the pandemic as an excuse, right, to
Yes.
exploit them even further is unconscionable.
Yeah.
And it is just, I can't, I have no words. I'm so sorry.
There's so many of them. That's why when I had an interview a few weeks ago, I said we're thanking the Minister of Manpower for taking care of the male migrants because you know what's happening to them right now. But don't forget the domestic workers because we are the hidden one. Like no one will know once we're inside the house. No one will know what's happening to us. And sometimes they cannot ask for help because their phones are confiscated or they're not even allowed to go out. So those are the reasons that I think once phase two started, there will be many domestic workers that will run away. We're waiting for that.
Oh dear. And I mean, I want to say, good luck, but like, I don't know what else to say except, I hope that they find the help that they can get and that we're here to support you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Bing, and for constantly and so diligently, showing up and being the voice of the people who have no voice. So thank you for that, Bing. Would like to invite also our next foreign domestic worker, Ellie. She's from Central Java. She also volunteers at Voice of Invisible Hands here in Singapore, amongst other places. And she was also one of the winners at the Migrant Worker Storytelling Competition 2 years ago. Ellie, are you here with us?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry, just connection just went off.
No problem. So I wanted to check in with you as well if you're doing okay and if you're being well looked after and I think because you are a writer and a poet that you probably turned some of your experiences here into verse. So tell me what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, for me, it's the opposite from anybody else. I'm grateful that I always met like beautiful people. I always blessed in many ways. But during the pandemic, my employer, she usually not around, but she decided to stay because the border is about to close. So she came here before the circuit breaker. So she have to stay for 14 days stay home notice. And then after that, everyone is staying at home. And she like to eat restaurant food, but the kids don't like to eat restaurant food. So I have to go outside, and I go outside sometime more than 3 times a day. So it's like I worried about myself. Like if I don't wear a mask, I meet a lot of like strangers, and what will happen to me? Like I really scared, but I keep telling myself I will be okay and I should be okay. And I kept I'm not skipping taking the vitamin, so I will not worried about it until there is one cases in the near like apartment, and then she reduced asked me to go out, but still after I go out to bring her like one packet of noodles and then come back to cook for the kids dinner and then go out again to buy something else. So yeah, it's the opposite of the others, but it's scared because outside is like scary. Like there is almost no people on the street, but I also feel like those people who are working on the construction that time are still working. Like those are like on maybe hurry to finish up the route work or something else. And I was wondering like, how do they work without wearing a mask? Like there is no hand sanitizer beside them. Even the water and the glass is just beside the stand and the dust and everything. How can they keep their faith? Like how do they not worried about everything?
Yeah. No,
But
and
that's
thanks for
my
sharing that, alternate point of view that whilst, a big group of our domestic workers are being held at home, there might also be another group who are constantly being sent out to run the errands that the employers don't want to do themselves, right? And it's like, we'll expose you instead. We don't have to expose ourselves, right? Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for, it is. And if you're afraid, you can also sort of say, I don't feel like going out to buy your food today. Can I cook you a meal instead? Right.
She will say, but I'm craving for this.
Yeah. There's also Deliveroo. Introduce her to the app.
Yeah. And her favorite restaurant is out of the rain. So it's like something in Burdock, something in lavender, and I was in East Coast.
Right. Wow. No, I mean, I tell you what, look, whatever it is, we think about, who we've come to deem as essential workers and frontline workers, right? People who have to keep going out there every day, risking their lives to make sure the rest of us can function. And we just, like our food delivery drivers, our essential workers in healthcare, and the people, serving our food, we they're out there every day, so with the faith and with lots of extra cleanliness measures, I think that's how they all do it. But thank you so much, Ellie. I look forward to hearing your poem in a while.
Thank you.
At this point, we'd like to kind of open the floor up to everybody. And here's where we kind of, throw the question open to whoever would like to sort of weigh in. What do you reckon, Lau? I mean, I've been thinking about this, and something you said, Eni, earlier really struck me, which was in times of, crisis like that, like the pandemic, it's like a war on information, isn't it? And I feel like, especially for our most vulnerable, the access to information is something that is, I don't know whether it's deliberate or it's just a blind spot for a lot of people. So I'm not sure where to take this, but I'm happy to hear your perspectives. Some things have come up that have been positive, but I think in this particular situation, a lot of the issues have been there for very long. It's just that I think for the general populace to sort of kind of go, okay, we see you now. So how can we move forward from this, and how can we be more inclusive of your voices, and how can we make working here in Singapore better for everyone, and I mean everyone. Eni, or maybe you can give us your perspective.
One of the good thing when because I've been chairing the International Migrants Alliance, it is actually a grassroots alliance of the immigrants, migrant workers, and refugee community in the world. So we have like 180 members in 35 countries. So we have been talking a lot over the Zoom, over the Skype before. In fact, during this COVID-19, we keep we have a lot of exchanging from Canada, US, Europe, and so forth. And what I can say, there are really commonalities in the sense that what has been experienced by migrant workers, regardless of our sector, whether you are in construction, whether you are in plantation, whether you are domestic workers, has been existing for years. This is not the first time we are suffering. The issue of low pay, long working hours, overwork, denial of rest, and other thing has been part of the system. And that's one thing that before COVID-19, many people just take for granted that, this issue is not even visible. As long as you see domestic workers, migrant workers are happily, with happy faces on Sunday, you think everything is fine. And then they take it for granted that, the road is clean, migrant workers can eat, and everything is fine. They do not go beyond the wall. They don't go beyond factories. They don't go beyond the gadget that these workers are holding. Because, when migrant workers is holding this iPhone stuff, everything suddenly you are so well, so you have no problem. So that kind of assumption is really very strong. And I think this is also added because of what the exclusion. You are using the language of inclusivity. For decades, the migrant workers in the different part of the world has been excluded from the society. In the sense, you are excluded within the law. So many of us are not even under the labor ordinance. You don't have even rest hours or, working hours. You don't have minimum wage. What you have is a market wage, So you will be priced, you have a price tag according to your nationality. So that is kind of sad, because you look like an animal, whether you are a cow or you are a pig, you have different price. And that's how that's how the migrant workers for many decades has been treated. So within the law, we are completely excluded. Take example, domestic workers is not even within the labor ordinance. Migrant workers in general, they are not. Until you reach like semi-professional or even professional, you call it expat, then you are within the law. Otherwise, when you are falling under the informal sector, you are not protected by any law. If your government do not fight for any memorandum of agreement with that country, then practically you are under the radar. So this is the reason why our condition become very invisible within the context of the regulation. Now, within society, you can see that we are living in isolation. The domestic workers in employer houses, you don't see them until Sunday. You don't even see them on Sunday if they don't go out. In Taiwan, it's not even mandatory to have holiday, right? Actually, within Asia, only Hong Kong has a weekly mandatory holiday. But again, if you don't fight for it, you don't persuade government employers, you don't get even 24 hours. You get only like 10 a.m. all the way to 5, and that's all. How many hours is that? It's only 8 hours. That is your rest hours. So it's not like the right that has been given is there. If you don't fight for it, there is nothing. Yet when you see construction workers, plantation, they are hidden. In the case of Singapore, they are in the very dense, cramped, and very unhygiene dorms. And who put them there? The companies. Do you think government don't know about that? Of course they know. They legalized their dormitories. But what do they do about that? Nothing. So what you see is actually maltreatment, abusive treatment. We call it modern day slavery treatment, forced labor, name it, to migrant workers. And yet there is a strong denial in the part of government to even be there for us. Something like that. Not only the Singapore or Hong Kong government, even our own government. Now, in fact, during COVID-19, what has been found in common, the time when there are a lot of people being deported, terminated, our own government is not even ready to accept us back home. Some government even tell their people, stay abroad, I will send you the food. Stay abroad, I'll give you some money. You know what I mean? So it's so sad. It's so sad. Like, I need to go home. Yeah, I mean.
You're referring to the Indonesian government there. Is that what you're
That's
referring
one of
to?
the things, yeah. But you can see in other countries also. We find in the case of Bangladesh, or even in Latin America, many home government, our own government. I mean, I'm not only Indonesian. I'm talking about the rest of our sending government are not even ready to welcome the return migrants. And that is very sad. And one of the things that we noticed, whenever we were forced to go home for any reasons, there is no social subsidy. The fact that you will be unemployed for at least 6 months to come, maybe by end of the year, that's the only time you can look for another job abroad. You will be unemployed for at least 6 months, and yet no subsidy to your family. Why? Because most countries treat migrant workers as no longer poor families. So that's one of the things. So when you ask about, what to do to move forward for the inclusivity, one of the biggest lessons for me, I find it during COVID-19, is the realization and awareness among the people. A lot of the workers, the migrants themselves, actually now acknowledge if they don't come together, they don't say something about their condition, forever they will suffer under the misery. So now you can see a lot of migrant workers just take social media and, they are in the plantation and say, hi, I'm hungry. Can you send me food? They don't have to wait until they die to do that. Now the workers inside the camp are also doing that. The refugee is doing that. So you can see there are more voices. People have no choice but to take it publicly. Now, among the community, whether you are in receiving or sending government, in Singapore or Hong Kong, the people actually now start acknowledging, these migrants, man, they've been with us forever. They live and grew up with migrants. In fact, their children actually being brought up by the domestic workers throughout, 20 years, maybe 30 years. And they never really understand yet until COVID-19 came that these people are really, really suffering. No one is taking care of them. They have to take care of the families. They have to be healthy. They have to be strong with very low wages. But No one is caring for them. So a lot of Hong Kong families here, or even Hong Kong people, are realizing that. And I believe even in the case of Singapore, how they support, many of them call us, okay, I have this cash, use it for your community. I have this mask, use it. Oh, what do you need for us to help you? The church coming to us, the mosque is doing something. So now we don't have to ask, hey guys, help us. Now they are coming voluntarily to us to offer assistance. I think that's one of the beauty we see within this COVID-19, that the local also acknowledge they cannot live without migrants, and the migrant also acknowledge if they don't say something about their condition, nothing will change.
Yeah, thank you for that, Eni, because you summed it up so well, and I'm just in awe of you, really, and and how you managed to do all this activism and all this work on top of the work that you do in Hong Kong. And I tell you what, every time I look at Hong Kong and I look at the way they are protesting for their rights, right? I mean, the young people of Hong Kong, and they really give me hope. Like I love what they're doing. I love that they're getting out there, and so thank you for that. I hope us in Singapore can take some, can look at Hong Kong as an inspiration and kind of get there someday. I have hope. Bing or Ellie or Madhavan, do you guys want to weigh in on that of something that you've noticed or how we can be more inclusive? Yeah, Bing.
Eni was right. I think first for Hong Kong at least, most people there realize the importance of the migrant workers' presence in their country. But I think for Singapore, now they only realize how important male migrants are. You see how they take care of them. They had, they have a singing together the other night for them. So those are the things they saw the importance, like who built this country, who built the buildings, and who built the houses. These are the male migrants, but I think for now they're still forgetting the presence of the domestic workers who's been helping the employers. How can they work if no one is taking care of their children, taking care of their uh, parents? So they need to realize that the in order to lessen the abuse, like to just don't tolerate it anymore. I have written in one of my article that if only we can be like act as a team during this, especially this situation of COVID, then I think we can survive this situation successfully. Like our employers will do the work at home because most of the people now do stay work from home. So just be a team. Like I will take care of your kids, I will cook your food, you do your own work at home. I'll make sure that it will be quiet. If the kids are noisy, I will be downstairs. Those are the things that they need to realize, because many domestic workers are doing this without the employers realizing how important to be their presence must be in the house. And I have, like, for example, I have this people who call me, like, because her employers are busy working during the day, and they have a sick parent at home, so the helper must stay with the father inside the father's room overnight because they cannot take care of their father. But still, when she asked for a rest day, the employer said, no, you can take a rest like at this time, or you can break your off day into like 2 hours every day. So how can you do that? But I think that's very important to get to know who's in the house, because I think for every domestic workers, that's what we're trying to do when we're at home with our employers. We're trying to create a conversation so that at least everybody will be in a good mood, try to avoid arguments and everything. But even we do that, if our employers will show stress, everybody is stressed. Like I used to think that there's one complaint, and then the employer said, because I'm stressed, that's why, I vented out with my domestic worker. But we're stressed too, but we don't vent it out to you or to your children.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think parents are all around the world having to deal with home-based learning are really understanding this issue right now in a very, very real way. Thank you so much, Bing, for sharing that. Madhavan, did you want to share anything?
I heard the story around 1995 or something. The person who working in Singapore as a migrant worker shared their stories with with the family. Usually in villages, most people, the neighbor people, all gather together for discussion in the evening or night time. One uncle mentioned that if you earn 1 day salary in Singapore, you can get 1 gram of gold during 1995. But now you cannot get the same 1 gram of gold.
Did you say 1 gram of gold?
Yes. In 90s, if they earn 1 day salary, they can get 1 gram of gold. But now also the salary is same $18, but the 1 gram of gold is around 63, 65.
I understand what you mean. So basically, we have not. I mean, with inflation, everything goes up, right? And everybody's salaries goes up at the same rate. But the growth of the salaries of our foreign workers have not grown together with everything else. They've kept it low. And I mean, I think that's really where we're beginning to understand where there are a lot of these exploitations happening by the companies who are hiring you guys and getting you guys here on big, big promises of wonderful things. But I think it's so systemic because it should not be a case where somebody can exploit and earn money from the situation. I think that's, and because in the first place, your rights as workers here are not protected, you're obviously easy targets, for people to exploit you. So once again, I've come to know about the situation, of the human trafficking because I got to know a woman who started an organization here called Emancipasia, Sylvia Lee, and she was educating me on the human trafficking situation here in Singapore. And for me to have kind of linked that to this idea of human trafficking here in Singapore was very shocking to me about 10 years ago when I learned this. And then as the layers are coming off, and I think with everything that is kind of blowing up around the world, people are really sitting up and wanting to know. So for me, at least, I feel like this pandemic, at least the silver lining, is that people are really, hang on, what? Tell me more. I want to learn more. So I don't know if I'm really hoping that we don't go back to the old ways, or I want things to be back to normal again, and then we forget all of this happened. But I really hope that with elections and with, putting our leaders and making our leaders accountable, that we will continue to speak up for the people who cannot be heard. I think that's really important for all of us. And it's not just the voices that, I'll just do one article, thanks, and then that's it. I hope we continue to have the conversation going so that we can continue to make sure systemically something happens. I mean, what do you think, Lau?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's what has happened over the last few months has been more of a symptom of a bigger problem, for sure. And the solutions are not going to happen overnight either. It's going to be a long road ahead. And I think what would help our audience is perhaps some ideas of what our listeners should be looking out for, what they could be trying to have conversations about with their fellow residents, their employers, or just their friends and their family about what a more inclusive world would look like. And so with that, I want to open up the discussion to a segment that we have in every episode where we ask our guests to imagine that they were bestowed with a magical power, a magical wand, right? And by waving that wand, you could change the way that societies work. And so imagine you were given that magical power to change the migrant labor system after the pandemic. So my question to you, to each of you, is what is the one thing that you would do to make migrant work more inclusive with your magic wand? And so I'd like to start off with you, Eni. What is that one thing you would do with your magic wand?
Is recognition to our contribution, and also recognition to our human rights. You don't have to think of us of any other thing. Just think of us as a human. Human means you have to work and earn money, and we contribute to the society, and we become very useful to the development of any countries where we stay. So just recognize us as a human, which also including as a workers, as a woman. Second is inclusion. It's very important. We don't want to be anything above the society. We don't want any privilege. We just want an equality within the law and within the treatment. That means inclusion within the law and inclusion in any type of program that given to the people, especially during COVID-19 or even after, should also be given to the migrants. And the last thing is also respect of our rights. As a foreigner, that means that we have right to stay, to work, of course, right to settle, because if we consider how many years we already live abroad, maybe more than half of our life is really abroad. But yet you cannot be a normal person in these host countries because you have been, you have been pushed down. You have been denied your human right. They just want our labor. They just don't want our human right. So it's time to respect our basic rights. Respect us. If people believe in religion, in humanity, in justice, this is the time for everyone, whether they are in the government, whether they are in the society, whether they are in any type of element of the society. It is time for us to show that in time of crisis like this, we learn to show that we are really a human. That means we have to treat everyone like us. If you are hurt, then we are also hurt. If you are hungry, then we are also hungry. If you are exhausted, we are also exhausted. So just imagine that whatever could happen to you, it also could happen to us. If you don't want that kind of treatment, then you better start treating others, the way you treat them yourself.
Thank you, Eni. How about you, Madhavan?
I have two opinions. One is to increase the salary. The other one is I don't think everything changed. So I decided to get one gun with 3 bullets. One to shoot the god who created this cruel world. The second bullet to shoot the whole world because of I need to punish all the person those who behave without humanity. Then the person who behave with humanity and social response, I want to take them rest to relieve from the world. And last bullet for me to shoot myself.
Oh dear. Okay.
This sounds like a movie, Madhavan. This will be your next movie. This should be your next movie. That was incredibly graphic.
Because everyone running for money, nothing won't change much. In India also, the migrant worker face many problems.
Yeah.
When compared to Singapore is much better. If I had a chance to meet someone who may take some action in Singapore, they must consider domestic workers and sex workers also. They also suffer a lot.
That's right. Thank you for raising that, Madhavan. How about you, Bing? What would you do with your magic wand?
Yes. I will make all the migrant workers be a part of the labor law. So all of us will be treated equally. We will have our rest day. We can take leave, because we cannot take leave, and we are not part of the labor law. And everybody will treat us as decent workers.
Thanks for saying that. And how about you, Ellie?
Oh, I'm so excited for this segment. I love magic. So if I given the power to change the world, I wish to erase the stigma and the gap between the blue collar and the white collar workers. And I wish there is no migrant labor in the world. Every country can taking care of their people, and everybody can just happily working side to side with their loved ones without suffering being away. In this pandemic, we suffer emotionally a lot because we worry about how is our family doing? Are they okay? How if anything happened to them and we are busy taking care of others' family while we as a domestic worker taking care of other family, and foreign worker, contraction worker building of someone else's home when they don't know whatever happened in their own home. I have no words for this.
Thank you for sharing that, Ellie. And very soon you will be sharing with us the poem that you have written, inspired by all that's happened around us. So thank you all so much. A big warm thank you to all our guests, Ali Noor Fadhila, who we'll be hearing from in a moment, Mr. Ramasamy Madhavan, the director of Salary Day, Bhing Navato from Home, and Eni Lestari Andayani Adi, the chairperson of International Migrants Alliance. For more information on our guests and their work, make sure to check out the Inclusively website for details. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, and you'll be notified when new episodes are out. And of course, if you heard this podcast up to here and you like it, do submit a review and tell us what you like and how we can improve. We always welcome any feedback. That's our show for today. Until next time, I'm Petrina Kow.
And I'm Laurindo Garcia. And now we go over to you, Ellie, our artist in residence, and we invite you to recite your poem and take us out for the show. Thank you.
Today I would like to read my poems based on my inspiration and my experience during this pandemic. I wrote this first poem when I feel tired and I feel miss my family so much, but I cannot meet them, and also my friends, I cannot be with them. So the title is When This Will End. When this will end, I'm sure you do feel sad, though we all know the world too feel bad. Like those sick patients in hospital beds, has nothing but hope of health that will come back. When this will end, I'm sure you do feel the pain, though we actually can strongly stand, like mahogany tree facing the rain, feel the blessing and the power that we will gain. But who can answer when things are unsure? Nobody, no one. Only when we united together by heart with belief, all shall pass. When it's time, we'll back holding each other's hands, sing along the mahogany tree under the rain, happily waiting for the sun to shine again. When it will end? Soon. As soon as we believe, we're strong and we can. Keep praying, keep believing. Tighten your hands onto your faith, because the ray of the God grace are waiting. Thank you. So, and this is my second poem. I wrote this when I miss my special person, my favorite person. So, I Fear What You Fear is the title. I fear what you fear, remembering to have spent time together. We share spirit, joy, and laughter. With you, my path getting clearer. though our distance is not near. Honestly, I miss you, but I fear what you fear. That's why I choose to not to stay near. I really wish you were here, because the night is getting colder. Without you, oh, how I miss your laughter. Even only through network wire, you know that I fear what you fear. It's not possible to run to you and get closer. Can I just hug you in my prayer? Thank you.